Hey everyone, welcome back to the FPBcast. Mike Szvetitz, Gerry Ahern here in our post-Thanksgiving edition. We're going to talk about football and everything that happened this past week. But first of all, Gerry, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. And we got to ask the question, got to answer the question on everybody's mind. What is the number one go-to side dish at the Ahern household for you and for your family?
Well, we're Irish, so it's mashed potatoes, with some good homemade gravy. Stuffing's a close number two. But those are the top two. There's no debate, no argument.
Yeah, it's the stuffing is number one for me. Mashed potatoes, definitely solid. I do like the casseroles, corn casserole, green bean casserole, pretty much any casserole. Again, the only casseroles that I will not eat, tuna fish casserole, which if you're having with Thanksgiving dinner is just, you got bigger problems.
Gross.
Only that. Sweet potato casserole, game over. Close the kitchen. Can't do it.
I would agree with you there, sir.
And then cranberry sauce. Yes?
2 thumbs up. Delicious and nutritious.
It is. It's basically it's in a dog food can. Like it's like, I can't do it.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's been good enough for this country for 200 plus years,
Yeah, and the can in my mom's house is probably from 200 years ago. The ones that she keeps buying.
It's got those Clark W. Griswold food additives to keep it safe, man.
I tell you what, man, that's there's 3 things that are going to survive, when everything goes down, and I think the canned cranberry sauce is going to be one of them. That's for sure.
And then the cockroaches.
Yeah, that and the cockroaches. And if we play our cards right, maybe some FPBcast we'll make it through the archives, and we'll send those in a time capsule out to space.
I wouldn't bet on that.
But what would you bet on, Gerry? Speaking of that, coming into this week, college football, we had the regular season finales, rivalry week, going into the conference championship weekend. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the NFL coming up. But let's touch base on what happened this past weekend on the college football gridiron. Big games. The game right there Saturday, the first game of the day on Saturday, Michigan at Ohio State, 2 versus 3. And what a performance by the Wolverine. Jim Harbaugh and the Fighting Harbaughs come out and really, in a close first half game, really took it to them in the second half. And kind of the undisputed Big Ten champ right now. I know they got to play Purdue in the championship game, but, we were looking at that game to be whoever wins this in the college football playoff, but also Michigan, could they be for real? Was Ohio State overrated? My opinion, Michigan definitely for real. Ohio State overrated, but their secondary just, I don't know if they were game planning to stop the run and Michigan took advantage of the secondary, or if they just forgot how to play football. But that was just a clinic of deep passes, big play, and then they wore them down in the second half and ran the football all over them.
Well, and to do it without Blake Corum, or in effect without Blake Corum, was even more impressive. I think Ohio State's defense definitely fell down, both in the secondary and the linebacker corps. Donovan Edwards, amazing performance from a running standpoint. J.J. McCarthy was an absolute star. Not the way I expected that game to turn out, but got to give Michigan a lot of credit, and they pretty much solidified themselves in the playoff spot, barring a complete pratfall against Purdue.
100%. And they are 16 right now, at least 16.5 point favorites over Purdue in Indianapolis on Saturday night. I like Michigan there. I like them to cover. Haven't watched much Purdue this year. Actually, I haven't watched any Purdue this year. Watching Michigan. If Corum can come back healthy, they run the football the way they played. McCarthy, I feel like this Michigan team under the radar a lot all year. Defense played well. They've been doing it by defense and running the football, which in today's college football game, not a lot of people like to see. They want to see the high score and they want to see the flying offenses. But hey, when you can run the ball and play defense, that always bodes well. I like Michigan in the Big Ten championship game over Purdue, covering at 16.5.
Well, I mean, much to his credit, you got to give it to Harbaugh for going to defense and going to the running game. Old school Michigan football, getting them back on track 2 years in a row now. It looks like they'll be headed to the playoff. We'll see if they fare a little better than when they got absolutely crushed by Georgia last time around. But, they're the best team in the Big Ten. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No question. In the college football playoff, we can debate whether Ohio State deserves a spot. I don't think they do. One loss. If you're going to take any one-loss team, there's a couple out there that are better. There's a couple of
Not just the one loss, but I mean, some close calls against teams that, Northwestern and Maryland. I mean, this is not the Ohio State team that I think anyone anticipated was going to be this year. Ryan Day under a little bit of fire, as he probably should be, given, their underachievement. Now, granted, they had quite a few injuries across the board on both sides of the football, which played, some factor here, but disappointing, I think, ending for Ohio State. And I don't think there's any way they should get in.
I don't think they should. And, depending on what happens in conference championship games, it could have been a lot simpler if LSU might have taken care of business against Texas A&M. A 2-loss team might have been able to leapfrog in. Clemson stubbing their toe against South Carolina. What a season Shane Beamer has had. I thought, he's riding his daddy's coattails coming in. And, man, Shane, they've won some big games. And, he's got something going there in Columbia, South Carolina. So LSU kind of on the way outside looking in. But that might make a path for Alabama. They beat all.
I wish Shane Beamer would pick a game that I decide to get behind him on rather than, the opposite. That's my only beef with Coach Beamer.
Yeah, you got to stay away from. I know you're staying away from South Carolina. They burned you too many times, but there could be a path now that Alabama gets in if some more crazy stuff happens. USC, I think for me, if they win the Pac-12 championship against Utah, which is a tough out, that's a very tough out in the Pac-12 championship. But USC beating Notre Dame 11-1 on the end of the season. Heisman Trophy should be the Heisman Trophy winner in Caleb Williams, the quarterback transferring from Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. I like USC in that 4th spot. You got your top 3 spots pretty much taken care of in the college football playoff, barring anything catastrophic. But even if Georgia loses to LSU or Michigan loses to Purdue, which I think might take them, you got to have a Big Ten team there. Or if TCU loses in the Pac-12 champion or the Big 12 championship, I think your top 3 are set if they win, right? Obviously, undefeated in. I think USC should be number 4, especially with the way they played, and if they can beat Utah, which is probably the toughest. If you look at all the conference championship games for all the teams that are in the college football playoff conversation, Utah is the toughest team that any of those 4 have to play. I think Georgia beats LSU. I don't think it's close. I think the way LSU finished their season, I think Georgia's just too good. They're the cream of the crop. I think Michigan beats Purdue. And I also think that TCU rolls over Kansas State. So now you got Utah, could upset USC and throw a whole monkey wrench into all of this because now you got Alabama sitting right there at 2 losses. Would you keep a Nick Saban team out with 2 losses if everybody else loses this weekend? I don't know.
Well, given that Utah lost to Florida in their one SEC game, I think it's hard to make that argument. But right. I've got USC given 3, taking care of business against Utah. I've got TCU, who we haven't really talked about other than mentioning them in the top 3, given 2.5 against Kansas State in the Big 12. That's another big game and a losable game technically that could knock them out of the box. Georgia given 17.5 against LSU. I think Kirby and the boys take care of that one. And then Michigan given 16 against Purdue. I harken back to last year's Big Ten championship game against a much better Iowa team than they were this year, and they got absolutely boat raced by Michigan. I think we're going to see a similar scenario play out in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think all the Power 5 conference championship games are going to.
I didn't even bother mentioning Clemson, North Carolina, because I don't think it bears mentioning. But
nobody cares about that one, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think all the Power 5 conference championship games. I think all of them are going to be walkovers for the favorite, except for USC Utah. I think that's going to be the best game. Utah is very, very tough. I think USC. It'd be nice. I mean, it'll be the first time I'll watch USC pretty much a full game all year because those late West Coast games. We watch a little bit of the Notre Dame game, watch them play. So I'm really looking forward to see Caleb Williams really cement the Heisman Trophy with a performance. Even if he has an average pedestrian, I still think that he's the Heisman Trophy winner because C.J. Stroud dropped the ball. Hasn't had a great season. I think people wanted him to be in the conversation. Bryce Young.
Just like last year, he was the front runner and he, sort of failed to get it done against Michigan and walked out. I think you got to give it to Williams. If you go back and listen to your prior FrontPageBets cast, you'll remember that I mentioned USC way back when as a potential CFP team. I think they're as good as anybody out there other than Georgia, and I think they're deserving.
That's right. I remember We'll have to go look at the tape. I remember you saying that, but we'll go back and look at the tape.
You should, because it's just like your faithful Tennessee pick where you were absolutely right. I gave you credit. I didn't go doubting you in front of the audience here.
Well,
but
I'm not saying I'm down you. I want to make sure it's like those, those commercials where you throw the flag. Let's go back and watch the replay. Let's make sure we got all the things crossed.
All right. Well, you go back, pal.
I will. So I think we've got conference championship games. I think the favorites win all of them, all 5 of the big ones. And I also think that, your college football playoff should be set. It should be set after this weekend. No question asked. Georgia, Michigan.
But it almost never happens, like according to Hoyle. So
exactly.
I think the Big 12 is the most likely opportunity for hijinks that could throw things into a bit of a tizzy. But we'll see.
Right. Well, we definitely will see. And we'll talk about it next week. Who's in, who's out, who we think, they still have the final vote will come in after the conference championship games on who's playing where. Then we'll have the bowl game selections. We'll know where everybody's going. We'll wrap all that up. That'll be in 2 weeks with the bowl game. We'll know who's playing the college football playoff. A lot more college football. Like you said, I like the hijinks word. Something always happens at this late, and there's always a controversy. So we'll see which one it is this year. But I think if everything goes according to plan, which it won't, but if it does, you got your 4 teams set up. And I think all your favorites win in the conference championship games. Let's move to the NFL. Thanksgiving week, we had 3 games on Thanksgiving Day. Probably the best Thanksgiving Day lineup and actual results. I thought all the games were really good to watch. Actually kept the interest going on. I was flipping back between watching the Egg Bowl with Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and going back and forth with the Patriots and the Vikings and the end of that Cowboys game there. But I thought it was a really good Thanksgiving Day. This weekend, I started out super hot in my picks, week 12. I started out, Gerry, I was 8-2 against the spread.
Nice.
Finished 9-7. Let's just start
That's
off.
so nice.
Not so great, but start off really positive. A lot of the 1 o'clock games had it. Finished 9-7 against the spread, 12-4 straight up. And you've got the teams that are really kind of separated. The Cowboys look great on Thursday. The Bills are, pulling one out against a better Detroit team. Miami takes care of business. San Francisco's the real deal. Like, you start seeing some of these teams, and then you got teams like the Jets winning. I know they played the Bears, which, not the greatest team, but, you start to see some of these teams. Seahawks follow the Raiders. The one week I don't pick the Raiders. You got the Bucs losing to the Browns. So you still got some of those head scratchers, but you got the separation. Kansas City, I think, is the best team in football right now. And that's no disrespect to the Bills. I think Kansas City is the best team as far as just putting it all together. Defense is playing well, and then obviously Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and all the playmakers they got there.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I would concur with all that. I think it was a great Thanksgiving Day for sure, but there's nothing like watching the Lions in Detroit and hearing the various commentary of how they're going to lose the game. And of course, it's playing out as being correct.
Right. Being up there in the Detroit area, I'm sure, that's a tradition unlike any other. Is watching the Lions find a way to
a lot of great Miller Lite field commentary for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So this week, game of the week for, I think, both of you and I, talked about it. I think it's pretty easy. Pick Kansas City at Cincinnati, a rematch of the AFC Championship game last year. Right now, Chiefs are 2-point favorites over the Bengals. I like the Chiefs this week, the way that they're playing, even on the road. Cincinnati won. They're starting to put together stuff. They're missing Jamar Chase offensively. I think their Burrows still getting hit too many times. Now, when you got P. Ryan running the football with Joe Mixon hurt, so you got some injuries there. I like the Chiefs the way they're playing in our game of the week. I think we'll start there, Jared. And then looking just down, Buffalo, New England on Thursday night. That's going to be, 5-point favorites for the Bills. I like that game just because in New England on prime time, New England's been playing tough. Obviously, Bill Belichick, you got to account for that. And I also am looking at that Miami-San Francisco game. Miami goes to the West Coast. San Francisco right now is 3.5-point favorites at home. I like the Dolphins in that one to pull the upset.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree with you. I think I got the Chiefs given 2.5 against the Bengals, although the Bengals really seem to be getting it together even without Mixon. The question remains protection of Joey B. And he seems to get it done even when he's not protected. So that's going to be a tight one, but I think Kansas City pulls it out. I like the 49ers given 3.5 against the Fish. I just think that they're finally starting to put it together, even though they were in that low scoring affair last weekend by beating the Saints. I think there's a couple other biggies looking at Minnesota giving 3 against the Jets. People still don't seem to believe much in Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, but I certainly do at this point. I think that's kind of a pretty good bet. The Vikes giving 3. And then you got the 10-1 Eagles given 5.5 against the Titans. I think that's another one I'm interested in. You mentioned Buffalo and the Pats. I can't believe how much Buffalo's come back to the pack. No pun intended there, but they just don't seem to have the swagger they had earlier in the year, and to see them with the record that they have right now is shocking to me.
Yeah, and Von Miller getting hurt certainly doesn't help on their defense.
No, it's a crusher.
Yeah, I don't know if they were too overhyped. And Allen, the elbow, is that really more? He looks fine to me. Some of the passes that they're throwing, they need to run the football, I think, a little bit better. When Josh Allen is consistently your leading rusher, and they're finding ways to make plays, they're finding ways to win games. But yeah, they're not the team that I thought they would be the way the Chiefs are playing now. The Chiefs are just going out and just Mahomes is incredible, and they're putting it on people, and the Bills are struggling to that knockout blow, or even to get into the position where they can score the knockout.
Yeah, I mean, it really looks like a Chiefs Vikings or Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl at this point, which I wouldn't have picked either of those teams as an NFC contender. And the Chiefs, I think we underestimated their ability to retool after some of their offseason losses, and Andy Reid's ability to, kind of adapt and adjust. And they seem to be, the team to beat in the AFC, I think, by a fairly wide margin at this point.
Agreed. And, I think the game that I'm really looking at, though, there's 2 games. I think one is, the Browns and Texans. Right now, the Browns are 7-point favorites. This is the Deshaun Watson return game.
Right.
He's back off suspension and all that. They go to Houston as 7-point favorites. Now, the Texans got the worst record in football, 1-9-1. They're not very good. Can't score, can't stop, all this stuff. I feel like that 7 points is a lot for Watson to come back in on the road as former. I think the Texans are going to be up for that game. I've got the Texans in the money line. I got them beating the Browns at home with all the hype. Everything's going to be on the spotlight. All the pressure is going to be on the Browns. Is Deshaun, is he even the quarterback that he was? Can he come back? Can he do it? He hasn't played in 2 years, more than 2 years. So yeah. I like the Texans there. Money line bet, at least covering that 7 points. That's for sure. And the other game that I'm looking at is that the Cowboys are giving 10 to the Colts. Home, it just feels like a lot. I know the Colts stubbed their toe again. It just feels like a lot right now. The way Dallas is playing, yeah, sure. But I don't know. I know they win. I don't know if that 10 points, it seems like a lot. It's the only double-digit spread right now on the board for Week 13. So I'm just throwing those out there right there.
I think those are both risky bets, to be honest. I think I follow your logic on the Deshaun Watson game, but Cleveland, under Jacoby Brissett did just fine. If Deshaun's not moving the offense, they're not going to, mess around. They'll make a switch there. I think they'll be fine. And then I'm not hesitant about the boys giving 10 to the hapless Colts. I think the Jeff Saturday experiment is going to end badly, as most people expected.
Yeah. Well, I just, you're looking for ways, as we've talked about, not many people pick against the field, right? You pick against the top 25 every week. I pick against the entire NFL field. And, and when you get into this point in the season, you kind of start looking for,
Oh, no question. Like your bets aren't bad bets. Don't get me wrong. I just think they're risky bets.
Yeah, risky. And, to keep it fresh, but also I think, again, watching a lot of this football right now, one thing we've learned from 2022, it's the year of the underdog, at least more so than it has been, and the under. Low scoring games, underdogs win in at a more percentage clip than they have in a while. And I just feel like lower scoring games favor, obviously, the underdog. They keep it close. They can cover the spreads, and double-digit spreads this year have not been paid off very well for the favorite. So just trying to keep that in mind as we go into Week 13, the first games of December. December is here. Holiday season is upon us. We're ready for conference championship games in college football. We're ready for really, kind of, this is where the middle third of the season for the NFL, you can really kind of gain a lot of ground or you can lose a lot of ground. You can't win it all and you can't lose it all, but you can really set yourself up for that last.
You can gain a lot of ground, or you could be the Denver Broncos or the Raiders or the Texans or the Packers.
Russ Wilson and the $250 million. I don't know if there was talk about a bad bet, talk about a bad beat, paying that guy $250 million to come and do that. Bad, just bad. Broncos.
I'm stunned by that one, to be honest. I've always been a Russell Wilson guy. I thought, what he did over his time in Seattle was pretty amazing. But it was not anticipated production, that's for sure.
Nope. And again, in Seattle, he had a defense. They could run the football. Can't do either of those in Denver. Doesn't have anybody to throw to. It's just a recipe for disaster there. So we'll see. The Broncos, the Raiders, the Packers. We knew the Texans would be bad, but some of these other teams you thought would actually have a chance. The Jets are good. The Bears without Justin Fields, they're the Bears. So yeah, again, this is that point in the season where you can really kind of gain some ground if you're some of those teams that just shows up and win. You can fall back pretty hard again, like the Bills. They're in the toughest division in football, and they're not even in first place. The Dolphins are playing really well, the Jets, and then they got the Patriots. And then you look across the way, and they're the Chiefs just rolling everybody. So it's going to be an interesting December as we move in closer to the playoffs. Again, college football conference championships coming your way this weekend. We'll be back next week to wrap all of that up and all the other things that happen in the sports world. World Cup, you got college basketball starting. We'll have it all at FrontPageBets.com. Keep it here for Gerry. I'm Mike. Thanks for watching.